Welcome to the Wealth Mastery Roundtable. I've got some guests with me today that I'm fired up about. I get to talk with my business partners and great friends today about the success that they've been able to achieve inside of their businesses and in their personal life by moving through the cash flow quadrants and being able to achieve wealth and freedom and show other people how to do the same. So I'm so fired up to be able to share this with you, to be able to invite you into this conversation. And really, I mean, the best way to start this off, Jimmy, I think, is for us to talk about the origin of this discussion. And really, that started with a call that you and I had. And just let's replay that a little bit. You mind talking a little bit about what you were bringing up and what you were pointing out that was going on in the agency that I was I looked right over?
Yeah, the crazy thing is when you look back, Brian, you look back and you think of how many years it's been, and it's, 7 years. That's people work 30 years in an industry, in their careers, and they don't nearly achieve what we've been able to do in these 7 years. But just looking back and thinking, like, I remember when you brought me in, I remember there was this one specific moment that I cornered you and I said, Brian, tell me, I was trying to build, I was brand new, and you were really only doing like 70, 80,000. And that's what people don't understand. When you look at somebody like me, I'm like a leg back to those days, you got links all here, the three of us linking us back to those days, but 80,000. And now you're doing what are your sales monthly? 1.6?
Yeah, last month was 1.6. We've done an all-time high of 1.8. So pretty crazy to think about.
7 years ago, and you're doing 80,000. I was at your breakout party as a manager, slip and slide, and man, we've come so far. It was incredible times, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that's really why I wanted to have you on. Is one of the things you were mentioning is not only the success that I've been able to achieve, but then you, as somebody who I brought on all those years ago, that you've now been able to achieve, that Geno Locklear has been able to achieve, that Tim Penso has been able to achieve. It's at this point, it's getting generational, and that's what we really wanted to share. Is what are the details, right? What are the details? What are the characteristics of the people who can have success, and what is it like when you get there? How is it worth it? Right. Because I think that's what everybody has in their mind. They have all these misconceptions. Oh, well, if they're successful, they must have started with a silver spoon in their mouth or a trust fund to rely on or that kind of stuff. So that's really why I wanted to get us all together for a formal introduction. My name is Brian Delaney. I am a senior partner with Symmetry Financial Group. I'm also the owner of the Delaney agency. I'm also an entrepreneur and an investor. I've got Mr. Jimmy Spieldenner on with me. He's a executive vice president with the company, with Symmetry Financial Group, the owner of the Spielbenner agency. He has not only himself been able to get to the top contract in this within SFG, but he's been able to help one other individual get there, who I'm sure we're going to be able to have on this podcast as well. Mr. Geno Locklear. I've only known Gino now for about 2.5 years, but what I've been able to watch him do is come from this place where he was just working part-time for our company. He had been successful in his past, but I've been able to watch him to move from this success that he's had to now getting to that place where he's not making 90,000 a year. He's not making 90,000 a year anymore. He's not in that place. He's been able to push his income up, and more importantly, push his impact up, not only investing in his community, but also buying his first house and really hitting a lot of the milestones in his life and helping other people do the same. And last but not least, Mr. Tim Penso. He's been able to come into the organization. I think it's you're now regional agency director or regional agency director with Symmetry Financial Group. Yeah. Chasing after that top contract within the company, real estate investor, just really sharp business person. You understand a lot of the dynamics that people who are far older than any of us fail to grasp, right? And so you've been able to work hard and just continue to get smarter in business and really grow this. So I'm excited to be able to share the wisdom that's packed into these three gentlemen with you guys, and just bring you into this conversation, because I think if you join into this conversation, if you listen and you implement some of the things that these gentlemen talked about, you too can find that level of success. You too can have access to that financial freedom, and you'll see how it's not that far away, right? It's not that far away. It's also not that complicated. It just requires a few basic things, and we're going to dig into those today. So I think that gives us a good place, a good platform to start on, guys. So let's start with backgrounds, because as I said, most people think you have to have a silver spoon, you have to have a trust fund, you have to have mom and dad funding your dream, all that stuff. And I know that's not the case with any of us who are on here. But let's talk about details. And Gino, I guess I'll start with you first. Kind of introduce yourself. Tell us, where you come from, and how, were you just groomed for success the whole time, or what did that look like growing up?
Yeah. And I appreciate you having us on here today, Brian. It's a true pleasure. But a little bit about me, Geno Locklear. I'm from a small town called Pembroke, North Carolina. That's within the county of Robeson County in North Carolina. And I come from a very, very poverty based background, very loving family, but a very poverty based background. And in the family that I grew up on, I was very loved, but that money factor was never there. And I remember, at a very, very young age, I want to say it was back in middle school, always, because one of my biggest goals and dreams is to be a father and a husband. That's over everything. That's what I want to do. But the way I was brought up, I made myself a promise. I would never bring a child or a woman in my life in this situation. It's never going to happen. And so I remember ever since then, I've just been on a path of success. Didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew I had it within me. I knew it was possible, and never came from that silver spoon you were talking about. I don't even know what one of those are, but it came from a very humble beginnings. I'm never going to lose focus of how far I've came, but I'm also never going to lose focus of how far I'm going to go. And I'm just excited about the journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I see you bringing other people from where you come from up with you, which is, to me, I hope we get to talk about that more in the future. Yeah. That fires me up without a doubt.
Absolutely.
Let's move to you next, Tim.
I'm 26 years old. I come from a big family. My mom's from Brooklyn, New York. She's tough. She always used to joke and tell people she was raising wolves. And I got 5 brothers. Jimmy knows what that's like. And it's been a fun journey, and just growing up in that competitive environment, fighting over the shower, fighting over, everybody's always like, man, you eat so fast. Like when you eat so fast. I'm like, it was a tight budget in the household, and 5 brothers, you'd be eating pretty fast too. Everything becomes urgent to you when you grow up in an environment like that. And, I was born in the Bronx. My dad, committed suicide back in 2002. That really shook me up personally, because I was seeing my parents were split up, and the household that I lived in with my mom, I was the only son that had that dad. So, and then my brothers would pick on me. They'd be like, "You're emotional." My mom would be like, "Be easy with him. He's delicate. He's emotional." But in reality, I was just always fighting something. I was always running from something, always fighting something. And it kind of just built this thing in me, unfortunately, fortunately, but Jimmy knows what it comes with. You guys do too. It comes in all shapes and forms. Our biggest blessing is also our biggest curse in a way. And I'm just super grateful of how far and the circumstances that, I was born into to be able to meet guys like all of you on this call and form our partnerships that we have and be in business together. And it's been an awesome ride, but it just keeps getting better and doesn't seem to be slowing down. Things are just as urgent. I'm just as hungry as I was, 4 or 5 years ago. It's just, it's like, oh, it's like, oh, you make $100,000, and you're like, oh, what's 250? Then it's 750. And then, then I had a conversation with Edward one time in an elevator, I was like, what's next for you? And he's like, $1 billion. And he looks at me with his charm and he's like, I was like, really? He goes, why would you stop at $1 million? I'm like, all right. But yeah, man, super grateful. I appreciate you having me on. Forgot to introduce myself, Tim Penso out of Boston. Just super pumped to be here and watch this call grow with all you studs.
Awesome, man. Awesome. The only people who regret the past are the people who are still freaking there. That's what it's about. And I love you. I love what you're saying about the double-edged sword. And Jimmy, I know that part of that is your story as well. Talk to us about kind of where you come from and how that's played out a little bit in your life.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar in the sense of Tim, born in the Bronx. I was born in the southeast side of Albion, Maine, which is population 72 cows and 15 human beings. So in Maine. So that's kind of my background. 10 boys, 8 girls in my family. So I understand the whole hurry up and eat before it gets gone or somebody else eats it type stuff. I eat fast too, Tim. But I think that, it's the exact opposite. I think just here listening to these stories and listening and looking at our success, and it's people that have had some kind of strife, some kind of struggle that they've managed to get through that actually are excelling and succeeding. And so many people become victim of their circumstances, and it's just a very common thing to do. And if you can curtail that that desire, it's all around us politically. Everything is to be a victim. You get awarded to be a victim, and I think that thank God I found Symmetry. I was within minutes of signing a loan. Really, I mean, it was that day I was going to go sign a loan to take over my life and essentially work in a restaurant. And the problem was I was going to live upstairs. It came with an apartment upstairs, and I was dating this girl, and she was going to be the front of the house manager, and she was going to make $500 in tips a week. And I was going to work as a cook, and I was going to save $500 in cost a week. And so that's how I was living. That's how we were determining our business plan. Is like, essentially, we're going to devote our lives to this and be lucky to profit in year 3. That's the restaurant business. So, yeah, man, I'm just pumped. And I'm pumped to be on this podcast with you guys, because I know I'll get to it a little bit later, but I think the best thing that we have here is the tribe that we got, that we're moving with, because that's makes all the difference in the world where you're going.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love what you said. A lot of people do. The myth is that successful people come from easy places, but soft eggs make weak chickens, man. That's what we all know. So let's talk about wealth and how that equates to financial freedom. Like that really is what wealth is. It's financial freedom, and people find wealth in different places. But Tim, let's start off with you. When did you first experience financial freedom, and what was that like for you?
The first thought that comes to mind is that it's just like more and more money kept coming in the bank account faster than I could spend it. Like that's like the real first thought. Like that's what happened. It was December. It was my 12th to 13th month. No, my 13th month, because yesterday, the day after Election Day, was the first time I met Ears in Sicily. So December, I'll never forget. It was just like, I was, with how business runs, people think we get paid every Friday, but when you own a business, you get paid when deals get done. And deals kept getting done. And I'll never forget the one night where I wanted to buy this jacket, and I sacrificed that whole year. And this jacket was really nice. I've always wanted a nice jacket. It was like $1,000. It's actually sitting right there. So you guys have seen it. It's the black coat I have. We have a picture with it on together, Brian. But and I bought that jacket, and I was feeling so bad about buying that jacket. And then like a commission statement came through, and it was like an $1,800 direct deposit from Moo. And then I woke up the next day and I had like a couple $1,000s more in deposits. And it was just like way more. Financial freedom is coming when way more is coming in than is going out. And that's what it felt like. And then, it just didn't stop. And then a couple weeks later, I booked a trip to the Dominican Republic. It was the first time that I flew first class. I went down there by myself, and it just, that's when it became it became real. But I think we all flow in and out of that feeling of being financially free just because you make or whatever. There's people on this call that make seven figures. You can make seven figures and money could still get tight. I think there's times in your life where you're financially free, right? Like, being vulnerable right now, I'm not financially free. I'm building a house, right? But I'll be financially free in a couple months, right? But we all go in and out of that feeling. It comes and goes. As long as we're pushing and growing, that feeling's always going to come and go. And Rossi, my buddy Rossi, that you guys know, owns 1,000 units. I say, hey, does money get tight? Yeah, he goes, yeah, money gets tight. The guy's got $10 million in watches, but money still gets tight. Mm-hmm. It never changes. Yeah. Save if you want to stay where you are. Invest if you want to grow, man. That's so, it's so big. I love what you're saying there and how that ebbs and flows in and out of that financial freedom, and you know where you're going, and that's what helps you get there. How about for you, Gino? When was the first time you first experienced financial freedom, and what was that like for you?
Yeah, I can actually think of two situations. Tim was a part of one of them. But I guess one of the biggest ones was last year. Last year when I was able to walk into my bank, my local bank here in town, and just say, hey, I want to go ahead and pay off all my debt. And the bank teller was like, all of it? Yeah, all of it. And she like asked me that question 3 times. Are you all of it? Like every bit of, yes. I'm gonna go ahead and pay off everything. It's just like, are you sure? I was like, yes. And what was the biggest feeling is whenever I was able to walk out of that bank, knowing I just paid X and X amount of dollars to pay all my debt off. And I sat in my car for a second and how appreciative I was and how grateful I was. And to understand that where I've been raised, the background that I grew up in, the situations that I faced in my life. And for me to be able to do an act like that there showed me, and not even having to worry, I just paid all that debt off and money was still good. Just like Tim was talking about, money's still coming in. And one of my favorite moments of financial freedom, and I probably talk about it at least a couple of times a month. It was me, Tim, and a buddy of mine, Jordan. We went out to New York. We were supposed to make it an annual thing, but COVID kind of changed it this year. But we went out and caught a baseball game, and we was walking down New York, and Tim said, "That's the place that I get my suits from." He was like, "We should walk in there." And we walk in there. They obviously greet us with glasses of wine and champagne, and we start trying on suits. And man, I'm like, Tim, how much are these suits, man? He's like, doesn't matter. and this guy picks out this suit, and I can't. The guy's name was Aldo, and he was like, Gino. And so he picked out this suit for me, and it was a $3,500 suit. And I went, done my little sales thing, trying to get it down. You don't get stuff down at places like that. And so I bought the suit, and I remember telling Tim, I don't know. And I ended up buying the suit, and he was like, and I got it custom tailored. And he was like, I send it to your room and you can come pick it up. Well, I knew he was going to walk around New York for a little bit. And we went and picked it up, and me and Tim was at a bar, and I said, Tim, what do you want to do? He said, whatever the fuck I want to do. And I was like, what'd you say? He was like, whatever the fuck I want to do. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, if I want to go do this, if I want to go do that, I can do it. If I want to do it as long as I want, I can do it. And I was like, that's it. That's freedom. So. Yeah,
I love that. I think like what people think that, because they look at people on Instagram that they know what financial freedom is, right? Because they look at what influencers have rented for the photo shoot, right? So, but what they don't realize is they're part of the crowd. They're part of the 72% of people who in the US who live paycheck to paycheck. 72% of people live paycheck to paycheck. And Jimmy, you and I have a long history. I remember one time hitting an ATM, and you looked over my shoulder and you saw an account balance in there, and you were like, you got $500 in your account? And I was like, yeah, man. Yeah. I was single income earner, growing a business, for a single income earner for a family of 4, growing a business, just hustling, sweating, making it happen. This was early on, and things are things are a little bit different now. But at the time, I was like, I was kind of proud of that. I was kind of proud of that at the time. I was like, yeah, I'm doing pretty well, right? Right. Those early days. But when whether it was before or after you joined Symmetry and became a part of the Delaney agency, talk about the first time you experienced that true financial freedom and what that did for you.
So I wanted to just address, you had talked in the beginning and you opened it up as wealth equals financial freedom. And the truth is I don't necessarily believe that per se. Wealth to me is financial freedom is a part of that, but wealth is true wealth is like what Gino was just talking about. It's having the options to do whatever you want. Financial freedom is when the concerns and the stresses of money I don't want to say aren't there, but are pretty much gone in almost in every given day. Like we're going to have just like Tim says, we ebb and flow, we get back into it. And there's times when we're investing a little more where we might have a little lesser of a margin in our bank accounts versus other times. But, that time with you was because at that time I was carrying I was new too, and I was carrying like 20 grand in my bank account, hustling my butt off. And I think it was better than 500. I thought you had like 3 grand or something, but I was just like, what in the heck? And this is who I'm following. And I'm like, uh-oh. But one of the things that I've realized since then, Delaney, is that you have been an incredible example to follow with investments, with investing back into your business. Like in this business, you will make so much money. And if you bottleneck it, if you hold it, you will lose it, period. You will lose it. But do you remember that time we were in, I think it was maybe St. John. It was one of the first trips that we took with Symmetry, and we were playing golf. You might have been on the hole with me. I know Pope was, but I had 12 grand in deposits and I had no idea where it came from. You remember that?
I definitely remember that. Because we were looking at your phone, and we were like, that was the biggest problem we had that day in St. Thomas on the golf course, on this beautiful golf course overlooking the ocean. And we were like, man, where did this $12,000 come from? We were like, that was the big deal for the day. I love it.
And I think the thing that, both these guys said is like, and I said it once as a joke in front of the class, I said, I'm not much into drugs, but I kind of feel like a drug lord because like you go on vacation or you do something and you spend so much money, and normally you're like, oh God, this is going to hurt. I'm going to look. And then you get back over the weekend or you get back and it's like more money is in the account than when you left. And it's just like, holy crap, I can live like that. And just have, the money. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. But wealth, I think that the thing that Symmetry gives us, that's true wealth is not just the financial aspect of it. I think that's super important to recognize is that we get time and opportunities to do other things. I've watched all you guys do other things with the abilities and the monies that you've received from Symmetry has opened up so many other doors for all of us. I think that's a pretty important thing to touch base with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And when we say whatever we want, it's not just the things that'll impress other people. Right. And that to me is such a big deal because I know whatever we wanted, Jimmy, was we were sitting at a table having lunch in Ireland, in Dublin, Ireland. We're like, let's go to Iceland. Flew out to Iceland. It was like within a day we flew out to Iceland. We were there for a week. And it was this crazy epic time where when I look back at the pictures, I'm still, I still think the same things, man, that you just said. It's like, man, that's available for me. Like,
the coolest thing, and I thought you were done. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but the coolest thing about it, Brian, was not only could we made that decision for ourselves. I had my brother who could not have afforded that trip, and you had your cousin, and we both took them like our dates and brought them and showed them, this type of life. And that was pretty cool. I mean, geez, that's just incredible, that trip. And some of the trips you bring me back, some of the trips we've taken through the years, it's the experiences, this is work. Tim talked about it, work. But some of the experiences that we've had along the way, it's mind boggling to even fathom that we've, in a 7-year period, I've probably done 15 lifetime trips. 10 to 15 lifetime trips that people just don't experience. And unfortunately, I've gotten to experience quite a bit of them with you guys, the high level. And that's the thing, is that you are surrounded by high level, like we are going out on these trips with high level people. So you are constantly, they say you're going to be like the 5 people that are closest to you, or you're going to kind of wind up in income wise, everything they say socially. And if my 5 closest people are you guys, I'm in some pretty good shape. So.
Yep. Oh, 8 weeks till Africa, buddy. 8 weeks till Africa. Got a lot of work to do to get there, but that's going to be another epic adventure. But a lot of people, they're an entrepreneur, right? They talk about I'm going to open a business. I'm going to be making all this money, but then they go back to their 9 to 5, get their paycheck, ask for permission to go home at the end of the day. They got to be back. They get weekend visitation with their family, right? And then they have to be back in their cubicle by Monday. And right. So it's like they never get out. And it's so easy to get stuck in that E quadrant that Robert Kiyosaki talks about, as far as cash flow quadrants, where you show up, you've got the safety net, you're getting paid for showing up, not how effective you are, not the results you get. And so that can be one of those places where mediocrity can suffocate you, right? If you don't learn how to get out. So let's start with you, Gino. What was the event that kicked you out of the E quadrant?
I think the biggest thing, Brian, is just frustration. For me, I've never been a person of somebody telling me what to do. I'm gonna be transparent. I hate it. I went into college, dropped out of college because of that. I went into the military, dropped out of the military because of that. I've had umpteen jobs up until, I entered the realm of entrepreneurship because of that. I don't like the idea of somebody and I heard it like this before, Brian. This gentleman said, if I want to make $1 million a year, why would I ever listen to someone who's trying to teach me how to do that don't even make $100,000?
That's right.
Why would I? Right. So, it was just frustration. Like I got tired of waking up, going to a job that I did not like, working hours that I knew I was getting underpaid for, and just being selfish in a sense, because I knew I was worth more, but I was in that jail cell that you were talking about, and just was too scared to get out of it. And then I remember listening to a podcast. I don't even know if it was called podcast back then, but it was a YouTube video with J. Cole, and he made this statement. He said, hourly rate. He said, you talking about getting paid $8.75 an hour. He said, so you're telling me an hour of my existence, me as a person within 1 hour is worth $8.75? And I was like, hell no. Hell no. And so I just got frustrated enough. And I remember I just quit my 9 to 5, and I put myself against the corner. I was like, I'm going to make this happen. There was no plan B, Brian. There was no plan B. I had to make it happen. So that was me. I got frustrated. I don't like people telling me what to do, except for unless it's someone who's going in the same direction as me or has what I want, and they're being a mentor, a leader, not a boss. Yeah, those type of people.
Yeah. I always used to say that I didn't like authority until somebody pointed it out. I don't like when other people have authority. That's the difference. that was the difference. I like it fine myself. I just don't like when other people have it. Tim, talk about it. Talk about what kicked you out of the E quadrant and really kind of pushed you where you were betting on yourself.
Let me start my watch, because I can go off on that one. No, that's such a good question. The thing is, it kind of happened on accident. Like, when I got out of the E quadrant, I just knew that there was another way than what I was doing. Like, I used to come home from, the quick backstory. I was in school full time. I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to be a state trooper. 25,000 people took the test. They only took 100. I was going to college. They had me write a paper. I wanted to go in the FBI. They had me write a paper on an FBI agent making $117,000 a year, all the school they had to go to make $117,000 a year. James Comey, the guy that was all over CNN, Fox News for whatever he was doing, not saying any statement about it, but I'm saying, like, he went through hell, got like going through so much for $160,000 a year. They had highest suicide rate, highest divorce rate for 160K a year. So I was like, you know what? That was easy to rip up and just move on from that. So I was working at the mall and retail, and I was like, there's got to be another way. I was in that retail rat race. And I just knew, like, it just built like this. I'm telling, this thing just never went away. I was working 2 days at GNC selling vitamins because you can get commission, right? I'll never forget that. Putting 5 on pump 3, asking my manager to give me $5 for Subway because my gas, I would run the debit card and negative. I'd have $10 in my debit, put 30 in my car, run it negative, accept the fee, ask for a loan to get Subway that day because I was getting paid a couple of days later. So it just built this crazy frustration, and I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I was there was this guy who was a complete dickhead. His name was Rob, we'll leave it at that. And he thought he was hot shit. He'd come in making his 70 G's a year, and he would just look down on me like I was some hood peasant. I mean, at the time I was hood, but I wasn't a peasant, you know, and he just treated me like shit. And, you know, and I saw other people get promoted because they were like, you know, a 22-year-old good looking girl that he just like promoted. And it was like a huge thing around the company, but no one said shit. And I was like, this isn't fair. So I wanted to start betting on myself where circumstances didn't matter. And I could just, you know, do what I wanted to do and achieve as much as I wanted. And that's what this business has allowed. It's an all you can eat buffet. You know, how big of a plate are you going up? Or yeah, how big of a plate do you have when you go up to the buffet? You know, I see I got like a minute, 30 seconds here left. But the thing is, you said in the beginning, people there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, right? There's a lot of pretenders and not real players. Mm-hmm. And the thing is with those entrepreneurs, it's so natural to be an entrepreneur. Like Tony Robbins said this at his event, your brain is designed to keep you alive, not happy. What really makes people happy is, you know, Brandon Ellison talks about this, is just being able to do what they want, being free with time and money. That's what it equates down to. So naturally, people don't want to go against what's hard and what's safe. They want to go to what's safe. And that's what Robbins talked about. It's designed to keep you alive, not happy. So whenever things get hard, you're going to run back to the 9 to 5. Security, prison, jail cell. You want security? Go to jail. Get your meals paid for. You get your housing. You get it all. You know, some things I'm not going to bring up. You can get two if you want, but you get it all. And that's why, Brian. You know, and just watching my mom I'll never forget. I was playing video games in my room. My stepdad, he's my dad. He raised me, Vinny. He's in the living room, and I just hear the truck start up outside. I was like, I didn't think they were leaving tonight. It's like 8:00 at night. And I'll wrap this up. I was like, I didn't think he was leaving. And they repoed the car. And my dad runs outside, and he's like a bigger guy. He's got a bad knees and a bad back. He runs outside, and they took the car. They took the truck. Comes back inside. I'm still in my room playing video games. And my mom goes, what kind of a man lets this happen to his family? And he's just that guy that just like she's talking to him like this, and he's looking this way at the TV. And I just heard that, and I was like, that'll never be me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's those pivotal experiences. And I know, Jimmy, you've had several of those, but talk to us about what specific events led up to you busting out of the E quadrant and starting your journey.
Absolutely, brother. So there's a couple things that were said in there that I really appreciate. And you were talking about in the beginning, entrepreneurs. And I think we've all heard that quote where it talks about, you know, so many people got $1 million dreams and minimum wage work ethics. And that's just the truth. People, you know, to make 7 figures, to make 200, 300,000 a year, that if it was easy, everyone would do it. And so the bottom line is this: it's not easy, and it takes some serious work. Tim, you talked about people taking the path. It's just like I always say, we're like water. We're going to take the path of least resistance. And so we'll go to whatever we can do that'll provide us the easiest pathway. Unfortunately, naturally, we do it without even thinking. We just try to and a lot of that's conflict. People try to avoid conflict. Fortunate for me, and probably for these guys on the call, I don't think that was an issue. Brian, you got so damn smart. You you figured out how to do it without being a bully like Tim and I. I don't know about Gino, but so, and then you also talked about that day of disgust. People just got sick and tired. And we talk about it every time. Like, if you talk to people that came over to Symmetry, every one of them has that story of the day of disgust. But did they make an actionable move on it? Did they move? And I'll tell you, there was a couple things that happened with me. So I was 18, 19, 20, Gino's age. And I used to think that I was going to be a millionaire by the time I was 30. All through high school, I used to say this. I mean, if you look at my yearbook, I guarantee it says something about that in there. And I just got into the restaurant business. I went right into the restaurant business after college, and I ended up getting up to about 128, 129, I think was my last year, 128,000. And that included a couple times a year, I would get a $5,000 or $10,000 bonus. So it was good money. It was good money. But what I did is I let go of great for good. I kind of forgot about those dreams, and I promise you, I even looked it up. I'm like, 120 is still like 10%, top 10% in the nation. I'm still doing pretty good. And there was a time I was sitting on a server alley. Anyone that's been in the restaurant business knows. And one of the main jobs of the dining room manager was to pull food out of the window. One of them, there always had to be a manager in the window for quality control. QA is what they call them. And you pulled them out and you sent them on. And here I am. I'm the GM of this store, and I'm watching this. He had to be, I was probably 33, 34. He had to be 50, working on 50, super fat. And he just out of shape. I shouldn't say super fat. He was just so out of shape, and he had his sleeves rolled up, and he was pulling the food, and he was dripping sweat all down his face. And this is what we do every single shift, dripping sweat. And he's, see it coming through his lips, and he's, 2 divorces in, working on his third. He's 2 heart attacks in, working on his third. And I'm thinking, what in the hell am I doing? Why is this where I want to go? That was my next position, was what that guy was doing. My next position was the regional manager. And I thought, like, for the longest time, and I guarantee you, he probably made 20 to 30 grand more than me. I don't think he made that much more than me. And he's got now 4 or 5 stores to have the same stress that I had, man. I was out. I saw the writing on the wall. I saw me and Delilah. We were just essentially devising a business plan to create, to give our lives away, to essentially give our lives. Like, hey, you got me for 60 hours a week. I'm going to save money here. Like, what kind of life is that? Like, in a restaurant business, you're talking 85% fail in the first year, 90% maybe. And you're talking usually generally 2 to 3 years for a profit. I mean, and when you're talking profit, you're talking 10%, 50%, like the margins are so small. Room for error is so small, because if you make the mistake, that did it. That pushed me over. And, I couldn't be happier.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes other people are our crystal ball, and we start to see our future in them, and we're like, oh, I need to break that one. I need to get on a different path. So yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Those pivotal experiences, right? People are like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want to do. And I know all of us have been through this. It's not about what we want to do. It's about what we're not willing to do anymore, and what we have to have in our life, right? It's those necessities. That shape us. And stop trying to figure out what you want to do and start figuring out what you're not willing to do anymore, what you're not willing to do, who you're not willing to become. And it's just like that, because that starts to bring you up levels. I'm not willing to become that guy who's working on his second marriage, third heart attack, right? And trying to impress people he doesn't like, and be around people he doesn't care about. I'm not trying to be that person. And so all 4 of us work together as part of the Delaney agency. You guys all own your respective agencies, the Spieldenner agency, the Penso agency, and the Locklear agency. You guys have done something that most people will never do, which is you started off in the S quadrant, and now you've moved over to the B quadrant, right? You've moved over to that business level quadrant where you're making money without your feet having to move every time, right? There's an active part of your business, but there's a passive part of your income, right? If you walked away from your business, there'd be a certain amount that's still clicked in on a monthly basis for you. So in our own ways, we've achieved some level of success before we partnered up. But what's different about the success that you experience now as compared to what you had experienced in the past? And let's start Jimmy. I'll go back to you on that one, and then we'll go to Tim.
So what's different about the success have the experience with Symmetry comparatively?
Yeah, compared to what you had called success back then, where you were making six figures. I mean, that's top 8%, right? You were in the top 8%. You had made it according to a lot of people, but what's different about that success versus success?
Well, first of all, what's different is I was a victim of my life in a sense. I was I don't even know. You probably have a better one-liner for that. I was a victim of my, I lived to work. I lived to work. And so I was 34 and I'd never gotten married. I'd never had any kids. And I also wanted that, Gino, that was a goal of mine. And I think that the restaurant business was a big part of that. I think that my devotion to my career and escalating up, I didn't start as GM. I started as a dish guy, doing that kind of stuff. And escalated my way up through the whole deal just to the next level. But it was at such a cost that it made it not just being a shell of myself and giving what little I had left to the ones that were the dearest, the closest ones to me. They got the last of the last. But for me, health wise, I ate when I could, and I ate unhealthy, and and the other factor is, and I think this is probably the most important one, to be honest, is when I came to Symmetry, I was the smartest man in the room. And what I mean by that is I was the king of the castle in my world. I was the problem fixer. I was the solver. Everyone came to me. I was the king of the castle. It was a great feeling. You're always needed when you're in that situation. You're always needed. You're not in a position where you can back yourself out of the corner, but you don't grow the same if you're always the smartest one. When I came into Symmetry, I thought I was always the smartest one. Enter in the room, and I quickly realized that I need to shut up and listen. I need to shut up and listen because I'm far from it. And now it's teaching me things that I didn't really start to grow up. This is crazy, but I don't feel like I really started to grow up until I joined Symmetry, until I locked arms with Symmetry. It just changed me in so many ways of, like, I think, man, I was in my 30s before I really grew up, but I was, period. I was. They shined light on places that I never, ever realized that I needed to raise the bar. And when you're getting to hang out, I was hanging out with Edward Pritchett and Brian Delaney, who both and now are at this point are well into 7-figure earnings and well into, many investments and mass income possibilities. And that's who I'm now hanging out with. They're the bars that I'm setting my pace with. I'm starting to now follow them instead of where I was the biggest and the best, thought I was the smartest, was just an ego problem anyways. Now I'm getting pulled up from these guys. So I think that is a big difference.
It's like, man, you feel like a big fish when you're in a bowl, right? How about when you're in the sea, right? It's a whole different environment. Tim, yeah, same question. What's different versus about your success today versus what you had considered success before?
Well, I'm not putting my success up my nose anymore.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. Just working at my old company, just a young kid, 20 years old, making 10 to 15,000 a month in my last 6 months there. My first year made 70, and then my second year was like 96,000 in 9 months. And I just, it was so normal for me. Like, my mentor was 28, making 860 grand a year. Like, business wise, just like sharp and slick, really great manipulator, effective, hard worker, just like someone 20 years old could just be wowed by, like I could be that, and I just remember early on, like, the girls, he's 28, his girl worked in the office, sweetheart. We would go out, he'd be cheating on his girl. And I'd walk in the office and she'd be like, "Oh, how was your night last night?" And I'd be like my insides were just like wrenched, and just like that wasn't success to me looking back. Like, yeah, I was, I got these cool little plaques and whatnot, but like, you're not successful. Like, you're doing that every weekend. Like, you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing twice a week. You're drinking every night. You're buying stuff to be somebody. You're putting stuff up your nose. You think you're a rock star, but you're on performance enhancement drugs all week. Like you're. I remember driving, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna finish #1 trainer in the company this year, and I'm drinking a Monster, right? Like I never did like drugs or anything at work. Never did that. But I remember like driving, and my heart was hurting. And I worked like 90 hours that week. I'd run appointments, like 40 appointments a week. I'd have my first one at 8 some days, and I'd have my last ones at 9:15, and I'd drive 2.5 hours away. I would leave houses with voided checks at 1 o'clock in the morning and some like fruit snacks because they felt bad for me. I was crushing it at work, and I was crushing my heart at home. And I was sleeping on an airbed. I remember I was like, I'm making $10,000 to $12,000 a month at 20 years old, paying $600 a month for rent. And I remember a girl came over to my apartment, and I had no furniture, and I had an airbed, and I had some cash on the side of the floor because I liked seeing that when I woke up in the morning. That was my life, on an airbed. And I was like, I'm not going to buy a bed. That's a waste of money. I could just sacrifice that right now. And then I came here, and I didn't see one Gucci or Louis Vuitton belt in the room. I think the only belt I saw I saw Edward, and he had a Ferragamo belt. I'm like, damn, at least somebody's got some swag around here. And I was just like, and I talked to him, and I learned a lot about discipline, and I saw how Ayers treated his wife. Like I've said this to Ayers is my mentor for people that will be tuning in, but I wasn't attracted to Ayers because of his business results at first. And we had to go through that together. One of my first questions I asked him, hey, what'd you make last year? He said 180. My old mentor was making 860. My old mentor used to tell me, he goes, you can't be a 10 or you can't be a 6 and bring somebody to a 10. And he just had that brainwashed in me. So I was like always worried, but I saw how he treated his wife, and I was like, this guy's a 20. It's not just about the money. And that's how success was different, because success isn't just about how much money you make. A lot of it's about how much you keep and how you treat other people. And this guy just has a relationship, and that I think all of us on this call envy.
Yeah, that's such a big deal, man. Such a big deal, because there's people who have all the trappings of success, but they're trapped. They're trapped. They it's kind of the gilded cage, right? It's like, wow, that is the most ornate cage you've ever made. And I remember watching my habits before I was creating my habits, then my habits started creating me. And I was like, man, this is how, I'm sharper, I'm better, I'm doing all this stuff, I'm making some money, I can do it. And then the wall started to close in, because I went from using those things to needing those things to those things using me, right? And whether it's money, whether it's bad relationships, whether it's work, where you're like, for me, I was always the hero at work and always the zero at home. Always. I was a freaking headliner. I went to work. My name was up. Oh, it's you. Oh, it's you. And I would get home, and it's like, oh, it's you. Right. And it's like, it just, that's the way it was. And Gino, I know for yourself, you got to experience some success just in sales early on, but how is today different from the success that you had experienced earlier?
Yeah. And Brian, I don't even know if I would even consider, what I've done prior to Symmetry success. I think I was, because especially compared to you guys and everything you guys have accomplished leading up to Symmetry. But I think what I was going through was the journey to success. And it was just equipping myself to get where I am today. But if you ask me, am I good at sales? I'm going to say yes. And it's not for me to be, rude or anything like that. It's just, I'm good at sales. I like people. And I never forget, being in the car business, working, 8 to 8, bell to bell, 6 days a week, your only day off is Sunday. And being there, man, and I was a good salesman. I would close deals after deals after deals after deals. And it got to the point where what I'd done wasn't good enough. It was almost like that, almost like putting water in a rag and just keep squeezing and keep squeezing and keep squeezing and keep squeezing. And that's essentially what I was going through in my sales career. And it just got to the point where I was, like I was saying earlier in one of your beginning questions, it got to the point where I was extremely frustrated with the idea of success that I saw there. I saw, their success was, continue to sell and move up the chain and become a GM. Who wants to be a G? Like, nothing against people who's a GM, but who wants to be a GM of a dealership? Like, I see the lifestyle that you have. You may have a good paycheck that's coming in, but just like you were talking about, you can be a hero at work, but be a complete zero at home. I want wealth. I don't want to be rich. I want to be wealthy, right? When you become rich, you're still attached to something. When I'm wealthy, I can do like we was talking about with Tim when we was in New York. I can do whatever the heck I want to do, whenever I want to do it, how long I want to do it with the people that I love. And, I've done, different things outside of the, the car business. I've done network marketing. I've done, all kinds of things that was in that realm. And I see the idea of success that these people were talking about, a little bit like Tim was talking about, all the flash, no substance, all flash. Where if something just like that would happen in their life, I do not think they'd be able to build it over again. And then whenever I was able to come to Symmetry, and I take a lot what Jimmy said, Jimmy talking about when I came to Symmetry, I feel like I finally grew up. Same thing, dude. Same thing for me. I remember, coming to Symmetry, and I was 20, so I'm 25, so I was 23 years old. And, I would say I was a kid. I was a kid with a lot of ambition, with a lot of skills, and just needed guidance. It was almost the person I was when I came to Symmetry was pretty much like trying to herd cats. But now I'm able to sit on the shoulders of, Brian Delaney's, Tim Penso, Jimmy Spieldenner, Edward Pridgett. Still, these guys here, I'm able to associate myself with these type of people. And the only thing that I hear, from these individuals are nothing at all about money, but it's everything about impact. It's about how can I become a better person, and I listened to I was listening to a podcast, and this podcast said, be somebody who helps somebody become a somebody. And that's what I want to do. I want to be able to put myself in a position where someone can look at me, not because of the money that I have in my bank account, but because of the impact that I can create. And that's the only thing that I hear about when I come to Symmetry. And now that I've had that, instilled in me, I've become a person that works on personal development. I become a person that becomes more disciplined. I become a person who's about routines and habits. I become a quality individual because I understand that the person that I want to become, I have to constantly, become a better version of myself to achieve that level of quote unquote success. And, and I just appreciate the way you guys lead by example and lead the lifestyle, because you guys aren't just preaching it, you're living it, man.
That's awesome. And likewise, it's just those daily disciplines that you were talking about. And so let's dig into that a little bit. For each one of you guys, list 1 to 2 of the most important mindsets or behaviors that you have to cultivate to be successful and wealthy. And we'll start with you, Tim.
Not giving up about what's going to happen. I was just perfect. I just read this other morning. You pull a tape measure out 80 feet, right? The average lifespan of somebody is 80 years old. You pull a tape measure out 80 feet. So you break that down, that's 12 inches. So one bad moment of something happening to you is about 1/3 of an inch on 80 feet. And that's just something that I think about. I try to think about every day. So when something bad is happening, it's like, all right, out of this 80 feet, how bad is this? And it just keeps you in an unshakable state. And I think one of the hardest things about, I hate like referring to myself as being in leadership because it makes me just feel like gross, like I'm a leader, but like one of the hardest things of dealing with people, I'll call it dealing with people, being in leadership, is dealing with incompetent people and people who something is such a big deal to them, but it's just so small to us. And it's like it's almost like you step aside. I got this. I was dealing with a guy, but it transfers in the real world. I was dealing with a problem the other day with something, and the guy's freaking out, my contractor, and I'm just like, I'll call him. Like, I'll call the building commissioner and I'll handle this. Like, it's not a big deal. But he was getting me worked up, and I was getting consumed in this thing. And I was just like, no big problems, just small people. And this is a guy that I look up to. And I think one of the hardest things when we're on the personal development journey and we deal with other successful people is they don't work as hard on themselves as we do. So when we see them freak out and we look up to them, we can freak out. But then we have to remember that we work harder on ourselves than they do. So it's like, we got to check the person that we used to look up to so that we could show them that they could look up to us in that moment.
So good. So good.
You know, and it's just always being in that solution mindset of like, everything works itself out. And like, there's no reason to ever freak out about anything. And I think when you get that confidence, like I told you about, we probably have to get him on the call, my buddy Rick, time travel Rick, but I always used to worry about stuff. The more, like, I was talking to my therapist today about buying the Ferrari. And he's like, man, he's like, you're talking about finding true love. He goes, you'll be cheating your whole life. You know why? Because you're always going to love your Ferrari more than you love your wife. I could tell by the way you talk about it. and I start dying, but I always used to just worry about losing stuff. And the more you achieve, the bigger the fear of losing it. And my buddy Rick told me this. He had a net worth of 200 million. And I said, Rick, you know, we're so alike, you know, and he's Myers-Briggs ENTP. And I said, Rick, you don't freak out. Like, you don't get worried when adversity strikes. He goes, no. He goes, I already had a net worth of 200 million. He goes, I'll tell you, anybody can make 200 million once and have a net worth of 200 million, but it takes a fucking rock star to do it twice. And I think when we put those arrows in that little feather in our hat, and we slayed, and I think it's important not to show and tell everybody what we slayed, but to keep that internal of the times that we slayed. You know, like, just when I did the 17,000 a couple of months ago, like, just talking to us friends, like, that's a, you know, we all have those. Brian, you have something. Gino, you have something. Jimmy, I know you have a lot of them. Those times where when no one's around, you know, you got your heads on the wall, right? The heads on the if you're a hunter. I think it's important to keep those in your head to keep pushing forward when things get tough, to remind yourself of who you are and what you've been through and what you can continue to go through.
So good. It's so easy to forget. And I think that's the position that most people are. They start off with this thing in their head. They're like, I'm going to be this type of person. But then they get knocked on the head by life. They develop amnesia. They forget who they are, and they go back to who they've been. That's not who you are anymore, because as you build it, you become it. And as you become it, you build it. And as